The Carolina Panthers are adding some dynamic playmakers to their offense for potentially their first overall pick quarterback. Now, we don't know who the quarterback is going to be, but we do know who will be in the backfield, and we do know who will be next to the offensive line at the tight end position. Let's begin with the first signing of the day from Carolina. Keep pounding. It's Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst, who I felt was a super underrated pickup by the Cincinnati Bengals last year. He is a dynamic athlete at the tight end position. Really good after the catch. His ability to break tackles, find room in open space, take screen passes for more yardage than he should. Hayden Hurst is a good athlete that also is a well-rounded player at the position. There's a reason that Baltimore drafted him in the first round when he was coming out. That's because he was a good athlete, but also was a good blocker. That's why Baltimore drafted him. Now, he didn't really work out in Baltimore. I think he was at his best last year in Cincinnati. He's not an upper echelon tight end. I'd probably call him a top 20, top 15 player at the position all around, but I do feel like he is a very nice complementary option to an offense because of that ability as an athlete in space, because of that ability to play on all downs in all situations, in all personnel packages, to be a threat versus linebackers due to his quickness and his speed, and to also be able to hold up in the running game. So Hayden Hurst is, I want to say, a little bit older than you would think because he was drafted at an older age. I'm going to look into that right now. Hayden Hurst signed an official 3-year, $21.75 million deal with 13 guaranteed. This hasn't been a super exciting market for the tight end position. This year, Dalton Schultz has not signed yet, who is the supposed number one tight end on the market. Mike Gesicki, my favorite move tight end on the market, has not been signed yet either. Last year, Hayden Hurst played in 13 games. He played in 13 the season before that as well. He's played 2 full 16-game seasons in 2019 and 2020. Last year, he had 414 yards. His first season in Atlanta, he had the most yards and catches of his career, 56 catches for 571 yards. Also his most touchdowns with 6. That was along with Matt Ryan and Atlanta in 2020. Last year at 29 years old, see, he is older because he was drafted at 25 in 2018. He had 52 catches for 414 yards in only 13 games, though. So he probably would have surpassed his yardage total, probably flirting with 600-ish yards in a full season. So he's been an ascending player for the most part, but I would say that he is a complementary piece. This does seem to be another contract, though, from Carolina that does seem to be maybe a little bit too rich. They did give Shy Tuttle, I feel like, a little bit too much money. They've been spending a lot of money. I don't think they have problems with that due to the fact that they're going to have a rookie contract at quarterback, so that's going to allow them a lot of leverage elsewhere to build the rest of their team. So this is where you want to maybe overpay for the guys that you really want. So I understand that, but it has seemed that maybe Carolina has been paying a little bit more than I would have thought these players would have gotten. And that continues with the running back that they picked up. His name is Miles Sanders. He's signing a 4-year, $25 million contract. Maybe I'm just alone in this department, but I'm not the biggest Miles Sanders fan. I was a pretty big Miles Sanders fan when he came out in the draft. I liked him coming out of Penn State. I think he is explosive. When he sees that opening, he's got pretty good vision. He can explode through the hole and create big gains. And that is probably what Frank Reich and company, Deuce Staley, who was in Philadelphia with Miles Sanders, really liked, because he can be one of those rare running backs. There's not a lot of them in the NFL that can actually take what should be for a lot of guys a 10 to 12 yard carry and create a 30, 40 yard carry due to his speed once he hits the second level. That's his greatest asset. The other thing with him is he's still only 25 years old. So that's another huge bonus. He's coming off his best year as a rusher, though, with 1,200 plus yards. He was given 259 rushes, over 200 rushes for the first time in his career, and he produced big-time numbers. So that's a huge positive if you're a Panthers fan. 1,269 yards, that is for 4.9 yards per carry, which is still very efficient for that amount of carries. In seasons past, he's been efficient. 4.6 as a rookie, and then he goes above 5 in 2020 and 2021 with 5.3, 5.5. So he's been efficient his whole career. It was a matter more of touches. I think what he did for himself this year is kind of prove that he can be a workhorse, because that's what he was this year for the Eagles. 259 carries is rare for a running back in today's NFL, and he produced 74.6 yards per game on the ground. He produced 15.2 attempts per game. The one area where he's not great, he's not the best receiver. He actually was a better receiver earlier in his career, so maybe there's some untapped potential there. Maybe Frank Reich can use him kind of like Jonathan Taylor in Indianapolis, where he's not a super elaborate route runner, but he has more to his game as a receiver than the Eagles gave him credit for, because he did catch 50 catches, 509 yards for 3 touchdowns, 10.2 yards per reception as a rookie. But lately, he's trended downward as a receiver. 28 catches, 26, and then 20 this past year for only 78 yards. So he wasn't even a very effective receiver. So that's where I'm not sure I would have been the one to sign him, because there's a lot of questions about one major aspect of a running back's game, which is being a receiver. If I'm paying a running back in today's NFL, he needs to be able to be a 3-down player, and he needs to be able to be somebody that I can rely on in pass protection, as a pass receiver, and a running back. That's the only guys that I'm really paying. Those are the McCaffreys of the world, right? Also, staying healthy is very important. And Miles Sanders this past year had the most games played of his career, 15. The rest of the years, 12, 11, 11. So he is going to miss a couple games at least every season. That's his track record. When a player tells you who he is, that's what he is. But I do think Miles Sanders was one of the better running backs on the market. It was him. It was David Montgomery. There was a couple other guys that came to mind. I'm not sure how much of an upgrade this is, though, because I love D'Onta Foreman. I think as a pure power runner, Foreman is a better player. These are much different running backs. Sanders is a more electric player. Sanders is a guy that has more burst in open space. He's better. Foreman is more of a power running back. So they're much different players. I do wonder what Foreman's going to get on the market. You would expect him to sign probably soon. But maybe in this new system with Frank Reich, he wasn't exactly the best fit, and Miles Sanders was a much better fit because of what I just said. In zone running, blocking schemes, Sanders was probably the best running back on the market, which is what got him this contract. So I could see the Panthers using Sanders as a first, second down rushing option, as the ball carrier, the Jonathan Taylor, and then I could see Hubbard being the Nyheim Hines in this offense as well. So just trying to put that into context. But those are the two signings for the Carolina Panthers. I think they're both big-time additions to an offense that really needed some electricity and some athletes and some playmaking post DJ Moore. The Carolina Panthers have also signed another interior defensive lineman, one familiar with their new defensive coordinator. Deshawn Williams is a Carolina Panther. The 30-year-old big defensive lineman will be playing alongside Derrick Brown and Shy Tuttle for the Carolina Panthers. This is a great scheme fit who's coming off a career year as a pass rusher for the Denver Broncos. Deshawn Williams graded as the 85th best interior defensive lineman in football last year, playing 598 snaps for the Carolina Panthers. He played 17 games for Denver last year, 15 starts. He is 30 years old, had 4.5 sacks, 37 tackles on the year, and he is teaming back up with Evero, who was his defensive coordinator for the Broncos last year. This is another guy that is going to beef up the interior defensive line. I would expect him to be a primary starter for Carolina this year. And just another very much Probably not the upside of Tuttle. Tuttle's a bit younger. Tuttle's, I would say, maybe a bit better. But almost immediately, I think Williams is going to slot right in there and play some sort of role on the interior in that rotation. So Carolina beefing up their offensive skill positions with Miles Sanders and Hayden Hurst. And now with a big D lineman, Deshawn Williams. There we go.